Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think Peter Rogers might be a bit late. He's got another meeting at the moment of the Durham Flood Club, which he chairs. So he's going to be a few minutes late.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll go into the roll call anyway, starting with Councillor John Griffith.
Bore da, presennol.
Councillor Richard Griffiths.
Bore da, pawb, presennol.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
Bore da.
Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes.
Bore da.
Councillor Vaughan Hughes.
Bore da, presennol.
Councillor Clynos Medi Hughes.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Aled Morris Jones.
Bore da.
Councillor Carwyn Jones.
Bore da.
Councillor Eric Jones. Councillor Eric Jones.
I don't do but I'm presennol, I don't think he's present.
Okay. Moving on, Councillor Gwilym Jones.
Bore da.
Councillor Robert Llewellyn Jones. Councillor Robert Llewellyn, I know you're there. I've just spoken to you.
Yeah, bore da o Ynys Caergybi.
Okay. Councillor Marion Jones.
Bore da.
Councillor Richard O. Jones.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Alan Mummery.
Presennol.
Councillor Brian Owen.
Bore da, pawb, presennol.
Councillor Bob Parry.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Gary Pritchard.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Dylan Rees.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Alan Roberts.
Bore da.
Councillor David Roberts.
Bore da.
Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Presennol, bore da.
Councillor Margaret Merley Roberts.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor Nicola Roberts.
Bore da, pawb.
I'll ask Councillor Peter Rogers, although he may be late arriving.
No, I am. I'm present. Good morning.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. Councillor David Rees Thomas.
Bore da, pawb.
Councillor E.A.M. Williams.
Bore da.
And Councillor Robin Williams.
Last but not least, bore da.
Okay, so we'll now go on to item 1, declaration of interest. Could any councillors or officers announce any interest? Members and officers are reminded that there is no need to declare an interest unless there's to be discussion of any matter in which he or she has an interest. No? Okay, we'll now go on to item 2, minutes of the meetings of the County Council. And just a reminder, the only part of the minutes that can be discussed in their accuracy, and no motion or discussion shall take place on the minutes except upon their accuracy. This is in relation to, I'm requesting approval of the minutes of the County Council meeting held on the 7th of September 2021.
Mr Cadeirydd, mae gynno fi gwestiwn i'r monitoring officer. I've got a question for the monitoring officer. Please.
Yes, okay. Is the question in relation to the minutes?
Totally, Mr Chairman, or I wouldn't be asking the question.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a query. I seem to recollect that the minutes of the County Council would always be approved in the following normal County Council meeting, not in an extraordinary meeting as this meeting is. It's just a query with procedure, but I seem to recollect that used to be the norm and to be corrected, and that's why I'm asking the monitoring officer. Yeah.
Okay. Could I call on Lynn Ball, the monitoring officer, to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. Yes, just to confirm, Councillor Aled Morris Jones does have a good memory. It is in the Constitution that it's not a requirement for the minutes of the previous meeting to be adopted at an extraordinary meeting, but it's not impossible to do that. It's perfectly permissible, but it's not an actual requirement. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Morris Jones? Are you happy with that to proceed?
Yes, I am happy, Mr. Chairman, but the fundamental point is either we have a certain set of procedures or we don't. I remember querying it a few years ago and told that we couldn't approve it in an extraordinary meeting till the next full ordinary council. Now we're doing it this way, which is fine, but there has to be a set guideline, and so my memory did serve me correct on that point.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, and hopefully, you know, moving forward, then we'll take that on board. We now go on to item 3 of the agenda, and that's to receive any announcements from anybody, the chair or the chief executive. Anybody got any announcements? I've got some announcements to make naturally as the chair.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt, but you haven't accepted the minutes.
Sorry, thank you for that. Okay, can we ask now that the minutes of the meeting on the 7th of September of 2021 are accepted?
A'i gynnig bod nhw'n gywir os gwelwch chi dda.
Dwi'n hapus i eilio y
Thank you,
cynnig.
the leader.
Hapus i eilio.
Deputy seconded. Okay, can we take that as read unless anybody questions that rather than go through a roll call? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Again, moving on to item 3 then, in relation to announcements. First of all, could I congratulate Ynys Môn Housing Department, who have been working with Gwynedd Council on the First Time Buyers Empty Homes Grant Scheme. They've won the Chartered Institute of Housing's 2021 award for supporting future generations in Wales. The County Council scheme to regenerate Holyhead Market Hall has also won a national award, AJ 100 Community Impact Award from the Architects Journal. Congratulations to Carl Edwards, Gethin Jones and Tidder Jones council staff, together with other members of Gwalchmai Biking Club, have raised £13,000 for dementia and Alzheimer's charity, biking from Treartha Bay to Aberystwyth, in total 116 miles. Congratulations to Mrs. Kellen Edwards on her appointment as the Chief Executive of Gymdeithas, formerly known as the Charitable Trust. And I wish to announce that there will be another extraordinary meeting of the Council on the 22nd of November at 1 p.m. to consider the statement of accounts. I'll now move on to condolences. I would like to convey my sincere condolences to Councillor Ian Williams, who has lost his father-in-law recently. Also, our sympathy to any member and staff who have suffered a bereavement recently. It is also appropriate that we reflect on the tragic events that unfolded in Leigh-on-Sea, Essex, on the 15th of October, resulting in the untimely death of Sir David Amess MP. This horrific attack has shocked everyone across the country, and our deepest condolences is extended to Sir David's family. We will now pause as a mark of respect for 1 minute. Thank you. We will now move on to item 4 of the agenda, the annual performance report 2020 to 21. And this is to receive a report by the Head of Profession, HR and Transformation as we presented to the Executive on the 25th of October 2021. And I call upon Councillor David Rhys-Thomas.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd, a bore da bawb. Unwaith eto, hoffwn ddiolch I Gethyn a'i dîm am baratoi'r adroddiad blynyddol yma am y blwyddyn 2020-2021. Mae wedi bod ger bron scrutiny dydd diwethaf, gweithgor gwaith, ddoe, ac heddiw ger bron y cyngor llawn. Ac os ydy'r cyngor yn cytuno, byddai'r adroddiad yn cael ei gyhoeddi cyn diwedd y mis yma. Mae'r adroddiad yn rhoi trosolwg werthfawr iawn beth mae'r cyngor bychan yma wedi ei gyflawni dros flwyddyn mor heriol. Ac I mi mae bwysig iawn dathlu llwyddiant, ond hefyd dysgu'r pethau nath yn mynd mor dda a dysgu wersi I wella i'r dyfodol. Wrth gwrs, prif amcanion y cyngor oedd cadw trigolion, ymwelwyr a staff y cyngor yn saff ac hefyd darparu gwasanaethau o'r safon gorau bosib. Mae hwn, wrth gwrs, wedi bod yn heriol iawn dros y blwyddyn Covid yma. Ond dwi'n credu bod ni wedi llwyddo fel cyngor. Hefyd mae'r cyngor wedi llwyddo I wneud llawer o bethau ychwanegol ac mae'r rhestr o hein yn yr adroddiad. Dwi'n meddwl bod os yn deg I mi ddewis rai allan o'r rhestr, ond mae bwysig iawn nodi hein a dathlu'r llwyddiant. Hoffwn hefyd gymryd y cyfle yma I ddiolch I holl staff y cyngor ac i'n contractwyr ar draws yr ynys am ei gwaith diflino dros y blwyddyn. Heddiw, ydyn edrych yn ôl, and yn sicr mae'r misoedd I ddod am fod yr un mor heriol fel ydyn ni'n mynd I tymor y gaeaf. Diolch.
For that, Councillor Thomas. Before I ask that the report is proposed and seconded, could I ask if there's any questions or comments in relation to this, to the report, please?
Can I say something? Mr Chairman, Bob Llewellyn.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to add my thanks to all the staff for the work that they've been able to carry out during this very trying period for a council like ours, and the way they have adapted themselves has been a credit to all of the staff. They really have done fantastic. Nobody knew how this was going to pan out and how people were going to be able to get the services that they need desperately. There has been increase, 5 increases in the mental health area, substance misuse, older people suffering domestic violence, and young people being excluded from their family and friends. So these are items that do concern us all, and especially the increase in the mental health problems that are now happening. So there's everything that we need to do. We must go that extra mile to ensure that we are there for these people who are in desperate need of help for them. And the social services are excellent in the way that they do support these people in their hours of need. But also the other thing, obviously, is the big question that we now have is the natural environment, and the way that every council in Wales now is trying to adapt the way that they do work in order to lessen the carbon footprint that we have. And this is very, very necessary in order to try to make a difference on the world and the way that it is suffering now. So I thank people in the field of the natural environmental protection that we are trying to improve, but there are areas that we do need to look at, and I'm sure that in the next few months, the council and the officers charged with the work of ensuring that we do all we can to lessen our carbon footprint will carry on in that field. And if there is anything that we as councillors can do, then I think that we should be asked or reminded in everything that we can do also to try and help in this thing. It must be an effort done by the councillors and the officers working in tangent together to ensure that the people on Ynys Môn know that we are aware of the need for action to be taken in this field. And I think this should be one of our priorities. And hopefully going forward into the next financial year, we will be putting more resources into this to ensure that we are leading on this as a council in Wales and not following others, that we show the lead. And like we've done in other things in the past, that we can do all as possible, and also to let people in Anglesey know that their council are aware of their responsibilities in this field. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you for that, Councillor Robert Llewellyn-Jones. Can I invite any further comments or questions? Anybody? Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Ie, diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Ga i tegu beth dwedodd cynghorydd Robert Llewellyn-Jones, a diolch i'r swyddogion am y gwaith calad maen nhw wedi wneud dros y blwyddyn dwytha yma. Rhaid fi ddweud bod nhw wedi bod arbennig o dda. Ond, a dwi'n dall bod yr adroddiad yma wedi bod o flaen sgrwtini, a dwi'n aelod o sgrwtini, ond nes i methu un peth ar y diwrnod, dwi'n ymddiheuro am hynna. Efo carbon neutral a climate change, da ni efo 7 ceir electric trydan efo yma, 7 ohonyn nhw, a 107 o diesel vehicles. Dwi'n gwybod, da ni'n prynu 4 arall ceir trydan blwyddyn yma. Ydy hynna'n digon? 4 mewn blwyddyn? Pam os ni'n medru alla gwerthu dipyn bach o rei diesel yma a prynu mwy o rei trydan? Mond y pwynt yna dwi eisiau gwneud. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you for that, Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Chi eisiau fi ateb, Mr Cadeirydd?
Yes, yes, I was just going to call upon you to answer that. Thank you for Councillor Ynys Môn.
Ie, dwi'n meddwl Arwel, be da ni'n neud ar hyn o bryd ydy edrych ar y fflyd yn ei gyfanrwydd yn dilyn be mae Covid wedi olygu, felly mae angen edrych ar faint o gerbyda da ni eisiau beth bynnag, felly be di hynny ydy faint sydd gennym ni rŵan, ond mae ail edrych ar y fflyd yn ei gyfanrwydd yn golygu bod ni angen yn amlwg gweld faint o geir fydd eisiau'r dyfodol, gan bod ni ddim yn trafeilio hanner y gymaint ac hefyd da ni dal mewn trafodaethau o'r Llywodraeth i weld beth sy'n bosib o ran cyllido cerbyda yn y dyfodol a edrych ar gerbyda eraill, a da ni wedi bod mewn trafodaethau efo materion yn ymwneud â hydrogen hefyd a yn y blaen efo rhyw ardaloedd ag trafnidiaeth a bysys cyhoeddus yn rhywbeth arall da ni mewn trafodaeth efo'r Llywodraeth efo, felly jyst da ni'n edrych arno fo'n ehangach, ond fyswn ni'n dweud mae hwn yn adroddiad oedd yn edrych yn ôl ar gerbyda oedd gennym ni yn y hen ffordd o gynnal gwasanaethau wrth edrych ymlaen mi fydd nifer y cerbyda sy'n ni'n dychmygu'n lleihau a bod angen edrych yn amlwg ar gynyddu. Mi oedd gennym ni yn un o'r awdurdodau cyntaf i gael cerbyda trydan a da ni yn dal i gynyddu nhw, ond mae eisiau sicrhau bod yna ddefnydd iddyn nhw a sa'n pwynt ni wario os nad oes o ddefnydd iddyn nhw, felly cytuno efo'r sylw a mae yna gynllun i drio symud ymlaen i wneud yn siŵr bod y cerbyda, achos mae gennym ni dyhead yn amlwg i gyrraedd yr targed yn hunan ac i wneud hynny mor fuan â phosib. Diolch.
Thank you for that response, Leader. Could I call upon Councillor Dolan Rees?
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Mae Cynghorydd David Thomas wedi cyfeirio at y ffaith taw un o prif amcanion dros y blwyddyn diwethaf ydy wrth gwrs i trio cadw ein cymunedau yn saff yn ystod y pandemig. A dwi eisiau ategu at y geiriau Cynghorydd Robert Llewellyn-Jones yn diolch i'r staff sydd wedi gweithio mor galed i trio wneud hynny, a mae hynny'n dod drosodd yn glir yn y adroddiad. Dwi eisiau canmol hefyd yn wedig y prif weithredwr, Mrs Anwen Morgan, ac hefyd ar arweinydd Cynghorydd Ynys Môn. Mae'n amlwg bod gwleidyddion a draws y byd gwleidyddol yn cydnabod y gwaith dda sy'n mynd ymlaen. Gai dyfynnu be dywedodd y gweinidog iechyd ar y pryd fo'n gethyn mewn plenary session blwyddyn diwetha. Dyma beth wedodd o. Hoffwn dal i teinged, nid yn unig i swyddogion iechyd o ymgylchedd, ond i arweinwyr a awdurdodau lleol penodol fod yn wedi bod yn gweithio gyda hwy. Gallaf dweud a ddechrau hyn gyda digwyddiad cyntaf yn Ynys Môn bod arweinydd Plaid Cymru yn gyfrifol iawn ac roedd yn credu bod wedi gwneud gwaith da iawn yn arwain y Cyngor drwy digwyddiad mawr cyntaf hwnnw. Ond mae'n dda i clywed rhywun o ochr arall y ffens gwleidyddol yn canmol yr arweinydd am y gwaith oedd ei wneud ar y cychwyn a sydd wedi cario ymlaen trwy'r pandemig i gyd. So, diolch yn fawr i'r arweinydd a prif weithredwr a gyd o'r tîm am gwachiad yn cymuned.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dolan Rees. Can I ask if there's any more questions or comments? No? Okay. Before we'll go to a vote, and then I'll ask Councillor David Rees-Thomas to endorse the recommendations in the report. Could I ask Councillor John Griffith? Councillor Carwyn Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just before you finish, I'd just like to highlight the Economic Development Department, which is a very small department with only a handful of staff, but the way that they responded towards the COVID as well. And, where we all had to move to work from home, but they managed, to work with the finance department and achieve quite an amazing feat, really, and help 2,000 businesses over the period with dishing out £40 million worth of grants during this financial year in the question. Then ni hefyd wedi llwyddo yn y cyfnod yma i adeiladu 10 uned busnes newydd ym Mhenros yn Gaergybi, a mae hynny wan efo tenantiaid, nifer denantiaid lleol yn nhw hefyd. A dwi'n meddwl bod hyn yn llwyddiannau reit dda i fod bod ni wedi cael y flwyddyn mor heriol i alluogi a rhannu allan cyn gymaint o grantiau hefyd ar grant Arfor dros 400,000 fe'n di rhannu allan i gynorthwyo 36 o busnesu yn fyna. Da ni'n cael 2 denant newydd hefyd i'n canolfan busnes yn Llangefni, a hyn yn creu 40 o swyddi newydd yn fyna hefyd. Felly, bod sydd mewn flwyddyn heriol, dwi eisiau canmol y cefnogaeth yn ni di reid hefyd i busnesu lleol yn Ynys Môn yn ystod y cyfnod yma. Diolch, Mr. Cadeirydd.
Thank you for that, Councillor Carwyn Jones. Could I call upon Councillor Marion Jones, please?
Diolch, Mr. Cadeirydd. Dwi'n meddwl bod mae'n bwysig bod ni yn diolch. Ond ni ddim eisiau colli'r cyfle. Wrth gwrs, fel Delyth Portffolio yn arbennig fo addysg, dwi'n troi at dudalen 14 yn chi weld yn fanno y manylion. Ond gai ddiolch yn y lle cyntaf i'r holl staff y cyngor am bob peth maen nhw wedi wneud. Brawddeg fer iawn wedi deud hynny, ond mae'r diolch yn ddiffyant. Mae yna gymaint sydd wedi cael ei wneud yn ystod y cyfnod. Dwi yn falch iawn o'r datblygiadau efo adeiladau sy'n cael i'w sôn amdano nhw yn ardudalen 14, ac hefyd bod yr ysgolion a'r staff mewnol wedi gallu dal ymlaen efo y gwasanaeth arferol, heb sôn am yr gofynion y Covid. Wrth gwrs, mi ar i'r ysgolion gorfod newid i fod yn ganolfannau gofal yn y lle cyntaf, ac mae rhywun yn dechrau anghofio faint o gyfraniadau a wnaethpwyd yn ystod y dyddiau dydd hynny. Gai ofyn i'r Rhys, y pennaeth, i basio ymlaen yn diolchiadau ni i holl staff yr adran ac i'r ysgolion. Mae safonau wedi codi, gadwch chi beidio, yn ystod y cyfnod, ac mae nifer fawr o fyfyrwyr wedi llwyddo. Mae yn meddyliau ni wedi bod allan efo yr ysgolion sydd wedi ymdopi yn rhyfeddol efo'r gyfynion efo Covid ac yn y blaen. Ac da ni yn dymuno'n dda wrth symud ymlaen, gan obeithio bod nhw yn dal i allu ymdopi ac yn dal i gael yr heriau yma sydd efo'r aroliadau a'r asesiadau. Efo geiriau mae'n niolch chi yn ddiffyant iddyn nhw am bob peth yn ystod y cyfnod.
Thank you for that, Councillor Marion Jones. Could I call upon Councillor Richard Griffiths?
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Thank you, Mr Chair. Ga i ategu geiriau cynghorydd Marion Jones o fanna. Diolch yn ddiffyant i'r holl weithlu. Enwedig uwch swyddogion, fel dwedis i mewn cyfarfod pwyllgor sgrwtini yn y blaen. Mae'n deg i ddweud, mae wedi llosgi'r ganwyll o ddwy ben ac yn dal i wneud sy'n werthfawrogi i bawb am hynna. Ga i jyst tynnu sylw i beth dywedodd cynghorydd Carwyn Elias Jones. Falch iawn bod yna buddsoddiant yn dod i Gaergybi a mae yn Sir Fôn. Ond fyswn i'n erbyn fysa chi ystyried amlwch ar ardal. Lla bod chi chdi bach yr hwyr ar y munud, ond yn y term nesaf, yn holl bwysig bod ni yn tynnu sylw at amlwch ar ardal. Lle tloddaeth ofnadwy, a does a dim, a beth yw'r dim buddsoddiant, heblaw y tai sydd wedi cael ei bildio yn Twrcelyn ar ardal, ond da ni wir angen buddsoddiant yn ardal amlwch. Diolch i chi.
Thank you for that, Councillor Richard Griffiths. Councillor Robin Williams.
Mr Chair, would it be okay to respond to that?
Yes, certainly. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Diolch i'r cynghorydd Richard Griffith amdan hynna. Yn amlwg, da ni'n gweithio hefo ar cynllun Arfor, nes i sôn amdan hynna dros 400,000 wedi cael ei wario. A mae nifer o'r busnesu yna wedi bod yn Gogledd Ynys Môn. Felly mae yna bres Arfor wedi mynd yn ystod y flwyddyn dwytha hefyd. A hefyd mae yna 110,000 wedi mynd drwy'r, da ni wedi rhedeg allan drwy'r awdurdod at Gomisiwn Niwclear i ardal Gogledd Ynys Môn, wrth ydych chi'n wybod. A mae'r pres yna yn ystod y flwyddyn dwytha wedi cael ei ddefnyddio i gefnogi 11 busnesau allan o'r gronfa yna, sydd wedi diogelu 39 neu helpu greu hyd at 39 swyddi lleol, creu 30 o gyfleoedd hyfforddi a creu 96 o gyfleon gwirfoddoli. A mae da ni fewn i'r ail flwyddyn o hwnna wan, a da ni'n mynd trwy'r y pwll eto o geisiadau, a dwi'n siŵr bod hynna wedi cael ei gyhoeddi'n fuan. Felly mae yna gefnogaeth wedi bod i Gogledd Ynys Môn yn ystod y cyfnod pandemig yma hefyd, a mae'n wedi barhau i fod i'r dyfodol. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you for that, Councillor Carwyn Jones. I'll call upon Councillor Robin Williams.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Swn i jyst yn licio ategu'r diolchiadau sydd wedi cael eu cynnig yn barod i'r holl staff am y gwaith maen nhw wedi wneud. Yn naturiol, fel deilydd portffolio ar cyllid, swn i'n licio diolch yn arw i'r holl staff yn yr adran honno am y gwaith maen nhw wedi wneud. Nid yn unig i gadw'r olwynion ar y bws fel petai, ond hefyd yn dosbarthu miloedd o grantiau busnes wnaethon nhw yn ystod y flwyddyn a hanner dwytha. Grantiau yn dod wrth gwrs o Lywodraeth Cymru, ond arna ni oedd y baich yn disgyn wedyn mwyn dosbarthu heini. Wedyn dwi'n hynod ddiolchgar iddyn nhw am yr holl waith maen nhw wedi wneud, a dwi eisiau i'r cydnabyddiaeth yna fynd ar record i ddiolch i'r staff am bob peth maen nhw wedi wneud yn ystod y flwyddyn a hanner dwytha. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Thank you for your comments there, Councillor Robin Williams. Okay, could I call upon Councillor Bob Parry, please?
Gaina hefyd ategu y diolch i'r holl swyddogion. Un carfran o swyddogion ar yn eich ddim yn rhoi diolch yn ddigon aml ydy'r rhai sydd yn gweithio i wagio'n bunia ni. Maen nhw wedi gweithio ar hyd y tywydd anodd hefo'r Covid, a dwi'n meddwl byswn i bron a deud bod ni'r unig sir yng Nghymru sydd ddim wedi gweld toriad yn casglu'r bunia. A dwi'n siŵr bod rhan fwyaf chi darllen ar y wasg yn ddiweddar, mae yna boen garw mewn rhai awdurdodau yn Lloegr beth sy'n mynd i digwydd yn ystod y Cia hefo staff yma. Ond dwi'n meddwl bod yn diolch ni fawr iddyn nhw. A tra dwi ar hynny hefyd, hefo gwastraff, mae lot yna chydig sylweddol bod y gyfran o wastraff na di ailgylchu yn ystod y flwyddyn i fynd i flwyddyn 2021 yn is. Pan ydych chi'n edrych ar y adroddiad, mae cofio bod hwn cyn, yn ystod diweddu mis Mawrth. Mae pethau di gwella dipyn bach, a dyna pam da ni wedi sefydlu rwan grŵp llifio newydd i edrych ar hyn, a dyna ni wedi cael cymorth gan Llywodraeth Cymru a Wrap Cymru i geisio codi'r graddfa i fyny. Mae aml i sir arall yn y gogledd hefyd wedi cael yr un bwyslais ar eu casglu. A ma'n hwtha hefyd, mae gynnon ni tan 2025 i ddod i fyny i 70 yn ôl. Chofiwch ni bod dros 70 ar un adag. Ond dwi'n falch iawn hefyd bod y cynghorydd John Arwen Roberts wedi cael ei ddewis gan y Pwyllgor Sgrwtini i eistedd ar y panel newydd yma. Ond mae'n diolch ni fawr iawn i'r adran gwastraff am y gwaith mae wedi wneud.
Thank you for that, Councillor Parry. Councillor Ken Hughes.
Ia, diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Dwi'n mwyn gobeithio bod Llywodraeth Cymru yn gwrando, achos pe mae yna argyfwng ar pwy maen nhw'n dibynnu ar awdurdodau lleol. Mae'n gair byr fel yna. Diolch.
Thank you for that. I think your sentiments are echoed by everybody here present. Moving on, could I ask Councillor Nicola Roberts?
Cliw be mae cynghorydd Ken Hughes wedi ddeud, mae'n gofyn iddyn nhw dalu sylw rwan efo'r cytgyadau bob dim maen nhw wedi wneud i ni dros y blynyddoedd ar gwaith calad sydd wedi cael ei reid i fewn. Mae mrwymiad yn staff ni o'r gwylod reit i'r top wedi bod yn anhygoel, ac efo gymaint ohonyn nhw wedi gorfod newid i rôl, wedi gorfod neidio i adrannau hollol ddiath iddyn nhw, a wedi bod yn hollol fodlon gwneud. Dwi'n meddwl bod rhaid ni ymfalchio yn y criw sy'n yma yn y cyngor a ffordd maen nhw wedi gweithredu mewn cyfnod anodd yn bersonol ac yn broffesiynol, a mae'n diolch ni'n enfawr iddyn nhw. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Ken Hughes, is your hand still up or did you wish to come back in? Shall I allow?
No, I'll put it down.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Dwi'n gweld bod y staff y cyngor wedi gwneud gwaith rhagorol dros y flwyddyn arbennig yma. Enwedig yn yr 19 mis dwytha yma, mae rhaid chi clod i rwy gyd. Dim ond os ydych chi'n prif weithredwr neu rhywun sy'n gweithio yn iseldiroedd y cyngor. Ond wrth ddweud hynny wedyn, cofiwch am heini sy'n amser am ddim tu allan i'r cyngor. Mae lawer un sy'n, fel da chi'n gwybod, enwedig yn addysg, yn aelodau o pwyllgorau ysgolion, ac mae eisiau edrych ar ôl hynny a wneud saf bod nhw yn cael eu cynrychioli hefyd yn y ffordd maen nhw'n wneud. Mae roed yr amser am ddim jyst yn addysg yn wahanol bethau. A dwi'n hollol gredu, mae'r rhaid i ni sbio ar hynna yn y dyfodol, ond ar hyn y bryd dwi'n gyfarch bawb ac diolchgar iawn am y gwaith yma y swyddogion wedi wneud. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes. Anybody else? Anyone like to come in? No, I don't see any more hand raised. Could I ask Councillor David Rees-Thomas to propose the report and to be seconded, and then we'll go to the vote?
Ia, mae'n bleser i mi. A dwi'n cynnig bod y Cyngor Sir yn derbyn yr argymellion a nodir yn yr adroddiad yma. Diolch.
Diolch, a cyn i mi eilio y cynnig, mi hoffwn ni na ategu'r geiriau o ddiolch yn amlwg fel deilydd portffolio gwasanaethau cymdeithasol. Mae'r her sydd wedi bod yn ystod y cyfnod yma yn anferthol. Mae gwasanaethau cymdeithasol yn delio efo risgiau drwy'r adeg beth bynnag, ond yn y modd o weithredu oedd yn rhoi mwy o risg, a mi nath y cynghorydd Robert Llewellyn-Jones cyfeirio at yr pwysau ychwanegol na o maes iechyd meddwl, defnydd sylweddau ac yn y blaen, trais yn y cartre'r materion yna i gyd. A mae'n diolch ni, a dwi'n meddwl bod sylw y cynghorydd Trevor Lloyd Hughes ynglŷn â gwirfoddolwyr yn hanfodol. y gwirfoddolwyr y dros 900 o bobl na'n wedi llaw i fyny ar gychwyn yr argyfwng yma mwyn wneud yn siŵr bod nhw'n cydweithio, bod ni'n gallu cydweithio hefo nhw mwyn diogelu bobl yr ynys. Mae hwn yn gwaith tîm. A yn y cyflwyniad, yn y rhagair na gyna i, nes i longyfarch i'n pobl ifanc ni am yr hyn nath nhw gyflawni yn y cyfnod yna yn eu haroliadau, a doedd yr un yn nhw hefo syniad be oedden nhw'n gwynebu. Ond un o'r brawddegau, a mae o'n frawddeg eisiau ddifynnu heddiw, a dwi'n meddwl bod hwn yn wir i bob un ohono ni. Cofiwch eich bod oherwydd eich treftadaeth a'ch diwylliant yn un o bobl gwlad y Medra, a bod gennych chi'r gallu i gyflawni unrhyw beth. A dwi'n meddwl bod yr adroddiad blynyddol, y perfformiad yma, yn arwydd o be mae gwlad y Medra yn olygu a be allwn ni gyflawni efo'n gilydd, a mae bob un ohono ni efo'r gallu gyflawni rhywbeth rhagorol yn y ffordd yn hynna'n. Felly, gyda chydig yna o eiriau, gai hefyd ategu'r diolchiadau a gofyn wrth y Prif Weithredwr bod y neges yn mynd allan i'r staff i gyd, bod ni ddim wedi anghofio yr hyn sydd wedi digwydd a dal i ddigwydd yn yr awdurdod ac eilio y cynnig y cynghorydd Dafydd Rhys Thomas. Diolch.
Thank you for that, Leader. I'll now ask if the report is approved by the county councillors. Could I ask Councillor John Griffith? Do you approve?
No. Caniatau.
Councillor Richard Griffiths.
Derbyn.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Vaughan Hughes.
Derbyn.
Well, Councillor Clunos Medi, you seconded, so we'll take that as read. Councillor Aled Morris Jones.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
You. Councillor Carwyn Jones.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Eric Jones. Councillor Eric Jones.
Diolch yma, Cadeirydd.
Not here. Okay. Councillor Gwilym Jones.
Derbyn.
Councillor Robert Llewellyn Jones.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Marion Jones.
Derbyn, diolch yn fawr.
Councillor Richard Jones.
Derbyn, diolch yn fawr.
Councillor Alan Mummery.
Derbyn.
Councillor Brian Owen. Councillor Brian Owen. No, okay. Possibly lost Councillor Owen. Councillor Bob Parry.
Derbyn.
Councillor Gary Pritchard.
Derbyn.
Councillor Dylan Rees.
Derbyn.
Councillor Alan Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor David Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Margaret Maley Roberts.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Nicola Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Peter Rogers.
Debt.
Cheapest creepers.
Councillor David Rees Thomas, you proposed the report, so we take that as read. Councillor Ian Williams. Councillor Ian Williams. Councillor Robin Williams.
Derbyn. Sorry, mute.
Okay, okay. Councillor Robin Williams.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd, diolch.
I'll just ask if Councillor Brian Owen is here again. I don't know if you're back with us, Councillor Owen. No.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Right, so that report is approved. We now go on to item 5 on the agenda, protocol for multi-location meetings, i.e. hybrid meetings. And on this, we're to receive a report by the Director of Function Council Business, the Monitoring Officer.
Can I just introduce us, please?
Yes, sorry, Councillor David Rees Thomas, yeah.
Okay, briefly, diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Dim bach o gefndir i ddechrau. Da ni sôn am weithio'n hybrid rwan sydd yn rhywbeth hollol newydd, dwi'n meddwl yn i gyd. Mae ddeddf Llywodraeth Lleol ac Etholadau Cymru 2021 yn cyflwyno gofyniad statudol i gynnal cyfarfodydd hybrid. Ac mae'r ddogfen drafft dogfen fflwyd yma, mae'n bwysig cofio bod y dogfen yma yn un fflwyd gellith o newid fel da ni symud ymlaen. Yn gosod allan sut ydym ni fel cyngor am gydymffurfio ar protocol i ddilyn mewn cyfarfodydd hybrid. Wrth gwrs, mae llawer o'n o waith wedi mynd ymlaen ac yn mynd ymlaen yn y cefndir i baratoi ni i weithio yn y dull yma, a hoffwn diolch i bobl sy'n gwneud y gwaith yna pwysig iawn yn y cefndir. Ac dwi'n siŵr fydd yna hyfforddiant ac ymarfer i holl gynghorwyr, aelodau llyg, cadeiryddio'n ag is-gadeiryddio'n pwyllgor yma i gyd cyn i ni ddechrau gweithio yn y dull hybrid yma go iawn yn y flwyddyn newydd. Diolch.
Thank you for that, Councillor Thomas. Before I call upon the leader to second the report, could I ask if there's any questions or comments anybody would like to make on the report? No? Okay, could I call upon, Councillor Nicola Roberts?
Ie, dim ond bod y modd yma o weithio i gael ei groesawu, mae o'n rhywbeth da ni wedi ceisio i gael ers i mi gychwyn ar y cyngor yma yn ôl yn 2013. A pa mor braf ydi o i weld y gwynebau hen a newydd i gyd o'n blaenau ni ar sgrin fel hyn, ac gan gobeithio efo etholiad ar y gorwel, mi fydd hyn yn ffordd i fedru hybu mwy o bobl o wahanol cefndiroedd hefyd fod yn sefyll fel cynghorwyr sir am bod gweithio'n rhithiol neu gweithio o bell yn medru galluogi pobl gwahanol, pobl sy'n gweithio i fedru ymuno ni. Felly dwi'n ymfalchio bod ni'n dal i weithio fel hyn ac long may it continue, medda'r Sais. Diolch.
Mr Cadeirydd.
Yes, Councillor Aled Morris Jones.
Ia, derbyn bod y protocol yma. Dau sylw sy'n ni'n hoffi wneud arno fo. Dwi'n derbyn pan ma' na maximum o 20 aelod, ac ella fydda ni'n cyrraedd hynny, ond mi ddyla fod yr hawl gyn aelod i fynychu cyfarfod yn siambar y cyngor os ydy o'n dymuno. Dyna di un pwynt sy'n ni'n gwneud. Y pwynt arall, a dwi'n derbyn bod y ddogfen yma yn newid, 3.10, mi wna i ddarllen o. When attending remotely, members must access the meeting individually. No other persons may be present in the room from which members are accessing a remote meeting. Ia derbyn yn ddelfrydol bod hynny yn bodoli, ond ella fydd rei bobl ddim yn medru cael ystafell ar wahân. Dwi'n gweld y pwynt yma rhy gaeth, tydi o'm yn hybu pobl, da ni sôn eisiau cael bobl i sefyll i'r cyngor sir, ella fydd rei pobl, fydd gynnyn nhw ddim ystafelloedd ar wahân i'r teulu. Dwi'n meddwl bod rhaid i hwnna gael ei newid os ydym ni eisiau bod yn inclusive. Mae hwnna yn asiwmio bod gyn pobl ystafell ar beddau hunan. Mwy na thebyg bod gyn pobl, ond ella ddim yn bob achos. Ac achos y pwynt yna, heb bod ni'n newid hwnna, fedrai'n pleidleisio blaid y protocol yma. Diolch.
Thank you for your comments there. Would Lynn Ball, the monitoring officer, like to come in on to respond to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. Yeah, dau bwynt. Y pwynt cyntaf, hawl unigolion i ymuno yn y siambar yn corfforol. Mae'r canllawiau yn adlewyrchu beth sydd yn y canllawiau drafft gan Llywodraeth Cymru ar hyn o bryd, a be mae'r canllaw yn ddeud ydy bod yr hawl, yr unig hawl ydy aelodau i ymuno o bell. Mae'n bosib i'r cyngor ddod i casgliad bod rhai cyfarfodydd yn mynd i fod yn cyfarfodydd o bell yn unig. So, dwi'n yn bosib i reid hawl i fod yn y cyfarfod yn corfforol. Ond be da ni'n rhagweld fydd yn digwydd, fydd na ddigon o le yn y siambar i bob aelod yn ymuno os dyn nhw'n mynnu. yn corfforol, a wedyn gobeithio yn y dyfodol fydd y rheola'n newid, fyddan ni'n gallu cael cyfarfodydd corfforol i gyd yn y siambar os di aelodau yn mynnu, ond fydd gyn pawb yr hawl, aelodau etholedig a cyfetholedig, yr hawl i ymuno o bell, peth bynnag. Ar yr ail pwynt, dwi'n meddwl os di cynghorydd Aled Morris Jones eisiau cynnig gwelliant a mae o'n cael ei eilio, dwi'n meddwl fysa hynna yn dderbyniol, fedrwn ni newid y protocol i'r perwyl yna, ond just i ni fod yn sicrhau bod unrhyw beth sy'n gyfrinachol, mae o'n pwysig bod na neb arall yn gallu clywed y sgwrs yn y cyd-destun yno. Ond fyswn ni'n poeni'n ormodol am rywun arall yn y cefndir os di'r cefndir yn ddistaw a bod yr issue dan ystyriaeth ddim yn un cyfrinachol neu sensitif. Diolch.
Thank you for that. Councillor Aled Morris Jones, are you satisfied with the response out there?
Dwi'n barod i gynnig gwelliant, Mr Cadeirydd, ar 3.10 ydy bod yr unig angen ydy i fod mewn lle arbennu hun pan mae'n aelodau o'r cyngor yn delio efo materion confidential, sensitif, sydd wedi cael ei beirniadu fod yn sensitif gyn swyddog monitro'r cyngor.
Okay, thank you for that. Limbol, do you wish to respond to that, or are you okay to move on?
No, that's fine, but it will need a seconder and there will need to be a vote on the
amendment.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr Chair?
Yes, sorry. Yes, Councillor Carwyn Jones, would you like to respond?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you, Mr Chair. Dwi'n gallu gweld yn glir lle mae'r cynghorydd Aled Morris Jones yn dod o, yn ystod cyfnod Covid yma, da ni gyd gweithio o adra, dydy. A di adra ddim yn exclusif i ni, na ddim yna bobl eraill yn rhannu tu efo ni. So ni'n gweithio adra yn ystod y flwyddyn dwytha, o gen i 3 blant hefyd yn gwneud i gwaith ysgol o adra union yn amser fi, pob yn trefn ar y cyfrifiadur un amser, a mae aelodau eraill o'r teulu. Mae'n amlwg cartra di hwn, dim swyddfa ydi o. Felly dwi'n gallu gweld yn glir lle mae'r cynghorydd yn dod o, a dwi'n fodlon eilio y cynnig cynghorydd Aled Morris Jones i'r perwyl yna. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Councillor, so we take that proposal as being put forward. Councillor Ynys Môn, would you like to comment before we...
Un cwestiwn sgenna fi ac mwyn i wneud y siŵr bod oedd ei eirio'n gywir, achos y cwestiwn af bod y materion wedi cael ei adnabod i fod yn gyfrinachol drwy'r swyddog monitro, ond da ni yn derbyn cyfarfodydd a sesiynau briffio ac yn y blaen. Felly jyst eisiau sicrwydd ydyn ni, achos da ni eisiau bod yn, dyna neb mwy na fi yn byw yn y tŷ teras bach, mae fod 2 o blant sydd wedi gorfod rhoi ei hun mewn gongol mwyn wneud y siŵr bod gen hi le i fod ar wahân i bobl eraill i glywed trafodaethau. Felly dwi'n ymwybodol o'r her, eich mwy na neb yn y cyfarfod yma heddiw. Felly dwi jyst eisiau sicrwydd, achos pan da ni yn rhannu gwybodaeth, bod ni'n gwneud hynny'n y modd mwy diogel bosib, bod ni ddim yn cael bod y geiriad yna'n cyfrol o ran materion, achos weithiau bydd eich swyddog yn trafod materion lleol efo aelodau etholedig, ac eich nad ydy hwnna wedi cyrraedd y swyddog monitro ar y mae yn cael ei rannu mewn berthynas o cydbarch o rannu gwybodaeth. Felly dwi jyst eisiau sicrwydd bod y geiriad yna ddim yn rhoi ni at risg o ran rhannu gwybodaeth cyfrinachol yn yr oll.
Thank you for that, Leader. Limbol, do you want to come back on that now then in relation to how the wording should be before I go? I know there's several other councillors got their hands up.
Well, as far as the wording is concerned, I think if we are limiting it to council meetings, then the wording is adequate. But if we're talking about informal briefing meetings, etc., then I think the code of conduct probably does kick in anyway, in that members and officers have got an obligation to maintain confidentiality and sensitive information, and therefore we're all obliged to do that already in the circumstances in which we operate every day. So I wouldn't be unduly concerned about that, because I would expect members to act with a reasonable discretion, and I'm not sure that we need to put a set of rules around it, unless that is what members wish to do, in which case the recommendation from Councillor Aled Morris-Jones would have to be rejected if it wishes to be extended to every kind of meeting.
Okay.
Mr Cadeirydd, os gael ddod nôl ar hynna, da ni wedi cael geiriad
Yes.
Da ni wedi cael geiriad oeth gyn y monitoring officer bod ni'n defnyddio'n disgresiwn, ond y fundamental point of yma ydy bod 3.10 y rhy gaeth, a mae o cymryd mewn i ystyriaeth bod aelodau gyd efo swyddfa lle maen nhw'n medru operatio. Fel da ni wedi clywed yn barod, tydi pawb ddim yn medru, a dyna pam mae hwn yn amendment syml i newid y geiriau, a dwi'n ddiolchgar am gefnogaeth cynghorydd Carwyn Jones ar y mater yma, a dyna pam mond efo'r geiriau yna o'n i eisiau dweud. Wedyn, mae'n cynnig yn sefyll, mae'r cynnig yn sefyll o achos be mae'r swyddog monitro wedi dweud. Diolch.
Okay, thank you. That we have other councillors who wish to come in. Councillor Carwyn Jones, is your hand still up in relation?
No, sorry, Mr Chair, it's coming down now.
Okay. Councillor David Roberts?
Yr unig beth o'n i eisiau dweud, yn amlwg pe mae'r un o gweithio adra, weithiau dwi wedi bod efo 3 o bobl yn tŷ yma hefyd. Be dwi'n neud, fi iwsio headphones. Mae hynna'n cadw yr pethau sydd yn breifat, i gyd yn breifat. Yn amlwg mae pobl yn mynd i clywed hanner y sgwrs, hynny be dwi'n dweud. Ond dydy pethau mae pobl eraill yn dweud sydd i fod yn breifat ddim yn cael ei rhannu na chi.
Thank you for your comments there, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Nicola Roberts, do you wish to come in?
Just mynd i ddeud unio'r un peth o beth cynghorydd David Roberts yn deud. Mae'n mater o common sense ydi o bod ni'n defnyddio headphones. Mae'r cynnig yn berffaith deg. Yr unig beth sy'n eisiau ni wneud, dwi'n meddwl, ydy yn lle bod o'n deud no other persons may be present in the room, no other persons may be privy to listening in on the meeting, neu rhywbeth felly, na'r oll sy'n eisiau reid i fewn de. Wedyn mae hynny'n galluogi pob fod yn saff wedyn dydy. So sa neb arall yn medru gwrando ar y cyfarfod os da chi mewn set o'r rhain. Ac y tebygolrwydd ydy, tos sa neb o gwmpas. Os di'r plant a'r gŵr, sgynno fi rhywbeth debyg i beth gyn pob arall adra, pam dwi mewn cyfarfod, maen nhw'n cael warning, cadwch yn glir o'r wrth mam. Ie, wedyn, a sgynno fi'n stafell ar wahân chwaith, sori.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes?
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Cytuno efo Nicla fan'na. Mae rhaid i wneud saff o'n pethau. Ond jyst i ysgynhau y trafodaeth, mae'n amser coffi gyda'r misys yma, so mae rhaid mi ddeithi gyda ddod i fewn. So dwi'n gweld fi mewn broblem o hwyrach ymlaen.
Thank you for that, Councillor Trevor Lloyd-Hughes. Okay, based on that, then there's a slight amendment. Are we happy to move forward and ask that the leader second that and that we go to the vote? The leader like to come in?
Dwi'n cymryd bod ni rwan yn derbyn y gwelliant, so dwi'n cymryd sut mae'n neud o wan felly, Lynn?
Dwi am gynnig yn dweud?
Ia, na chi, cynnig gwelliant.
So dwi'n cynnig bod y Cyngor Sir yn derbyn, sorry.
Sori, mae'n ddrwg iawn gen i torri ar draws. Be dwi'n argymell ydy bod cynghorydd Aled Morris-Jones wedi gwneud y cynnig am y gwelliant. Mae angen eilydd i'r gwelliant. Dwi'n meddwl bod cynghorydd Carwyn Jones wedi eilio. Felly, os di bawb yn derbyn y gwelliant, dwi'n meddwl bod o'n angenrheidiol i fynd o gwmpas pawb ar y gwelliant, ond be fyswn i'n argymell ydy os di rwy'n yn gwrthwynebu'r gwelliant, bod rwy'n yn deud hynny rwan. So, speak now or forever hold your peace, math o beth. A wedyn, os ti hwnna'n cael ei dderbyn, wedyn da chi'n reid y cynnig i fyny efo'r gwelliant wedi atodi, os di hynna'n dderbyniol fel ffordd ymlaen. Neu fyddach chi'n gorfod mynd trwy 30 o bobl dwy waith.
Yes, yeah. No, that's good. Are you happy with that? Is anyone challenging that? No? So in relation to the amendment and that, I'll go now through everybody and yes, hopefully the one time and in relation to the amendment. So whether you accept it or reject it. Councillor John Griffith.
O blaid.
Councillor Richard Griffiths.
Derbyn.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
O blaid.
Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Vaughan Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Clynos Medi Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Aled Morris Jones.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Carwyn Jones.
Derbyn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Gwilym O Jones.
Derbyn.
Councillor Robert Llewellyn Jones.
Derbyn.
Councillor Marion Jones.
Derbyn.
Councillor Richard O Jones.
Derbyn.
Councillor Alan Mummery.
Derbyn.
Councillor Brian Owen.
O blaid.
Councillor Bob Parry.
Derbyn.
Councillor Gary Pritchard.
Yn derbyn.
Councillor Dylan Rees.
O blaid.
Councillor Alan Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor David Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Margaret Merley Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Nicola Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Peter Rogers.
In favour.
Councillor David Rees Thomas.
Dwi'n derbyn.
Councillor Ian Williams.
Derbyn.
Councillor Robin Williams.
Derbyn.
Thank you. So that's been unanimously passed there.
Mr
We now go-
Cadeirydd.
Yes.
Mr Cadeirydd. Cyn i ni fynd
Yes.
at yr eitem nesa, os modd i ni gael rhyw
Yes.
wybodaeth gan y swyddogion, be di'r sefyllfa yng nghyd-destun gosod yr offer perthnasol yn y siambar ac yn y stafelloedd pwyllgora, felly, fel y bydd hi'n barod ar yn cyfar ni i weithredu'r drefn yma.
Ydych chi eisiau
Yes,
fi
thank you
ddifio
for that,
fel prif
Councillor.
weithredwr? Ie. Bore da i chi gyd.
Yes, if you would, please. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a very valid point. Yeah.
Iawn,
Thank you
bore
very much.
da i chi gyd, a dwi'n mawr obeithio bod pawb yn cadw yn iawn. Mae'r offer rwan, da ni ddim mynd allan i gaffael. Mae'r gwaith di cael ei sgopio yn union pa offer da ni angen, a wedyn da ni wedi reid yr bus ar y botwm i fynd allan i gaffael i gael yr adnodda. Wedi iddo gyrraedd Cynghorydd Jones, mi fydd yna gyfnod wedyn o hyfforddiant a threalu'r adnodda. Dwi'n na fel prif weithredwr fel chitha Cynghorydd Jones yn awyddus iawn bod yr offer yna mor fuan a phosib ar gyfer i ddefnyddio yn 2022. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, diolch yn fawr.
Efo caniatâd y cadeirydd, gai jyst ychwanegu at be mae'r prif weithredwr wedi dweud. Mae'r spec wedi mynd allan a da ni'n disgwyl diwrnod cau ar y tenders ydi fory. So mi fydd y swyddogion yn edrych ar hein mewn manylder hwyrach wsos yma neu cychwyn wsos nesa. A wedyn gobeithio fedra ni reid diweddariad mwy pendant i chi. Diolch.
Thank you for that, Lynn. And when does that answer your query, Councillor Gwilym Jones? Which I think
Yes, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's something that we're all very concerned about, and obviously the relevant training that may be needed as well to accompany any new equipment. So that would be good going forward. Thank you for that. We now go on to item 6, the review of parliamentary constituencies. and the report by the Head of Democratic Services. And can I call upon Councillor Robert Llewellyn-Jones to propose the report, please?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd. Be dwi am wneud ar hwn, dwi am darllen allan yn Saesneg, just i roi pobl sy'n gwrando ar beth yn ei bore yma, yn cael gwybod beth sy'n digwydd. I'm going to read this out in English. It's the review of parliamentary constituencies. The introduction is, earlier this year, the Boundary Commission for Wales announced the start of the 2023 review of parliamentary constituencies in Wales, in accordance with the provisions of the Parliamentary Constitutional Act of 1986. Initial proposals have recently been published for consultation. The closing date for observation is the 3rd of November. There are presently 40 constituencies in Wales, and proposals recommend reducing the number of constituencies to 32. That's from 40 to 32. The constituency of Ynys Môn is not subject to any changes and is retained. No changes are proposed also in relation to the name of the constituency. A copy of the Boundary Commissioner's report is available on the internet, and we can give you the officers can give anybody the link to that. Members will recall that the council, Anglesey County Council, presented a case to safeguard the constituency of Ynys Môn in 2017 as part of the last review. There were pressures on Anglesey to become part of the Bangor area, but thankfully that didn't happen. And the recommendation is, Mr. Chairman, to welcome the proposals for the parliamentary constituency of Ynys Môn as set out in the consultation document and recommend accordingly to the County Council. That is, that there is no change in the boundaries for our island. And I think that's due a lot to the efforts of the Council when in 2017 this was proposed as a very important, because we keep ourselves as an island and not to have some residents from over the water, over the ministry as part of it. So we're very fortunate we have done that. So I'll read the argymhelliad allan. Croesawu nad oes unrhyw newidiadau I etholiaeth Ynys Môn fel y nodir yn y ymgymhoriad ac argymell hyn i'r Cyngor Sir. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Sir.
Thank you for that, Councillor Llewellyn-Jones. Do you wish to comment on that, Councillor David Roberts? I notice you have your hand up.
Dwi'n aelod o'r Pwyllgor Democratiaid, ac nes I siarad yn y cyfarfod. Yn bersonol, swn i'n licio awgrymu gwelliant dy gwir. Dwi'n falch ofnadwy bod Cymru'n cadw I ffin, bod Ynys Môn yn cadw I ffin. Ond swn i'n licio gweld Cymru'n cadw I ffin hefyd. Hynny yw, dwi'n meddwl bod Cymru'n mynd lawr o 40 I 32 aelodau. Bydd gan bod amryw o bynciau sydd ddim wedi cael I datganoli I Gymru. Mae'n bwysig bod aelodau Cymru yn medru dylanwadu ar y materion hynny yn tu cyffredin. Felly, fe swn i'n licio dweud bod ni'n argymell, bod ni'n cadw'r argymhelliad presennol, ond yn argymell bod Cymru yn cadw 40 o seddi o gwelliant.
Dwi'n hapus I eilio y gwelliant yna. Diolch.
Okay. I'm going to call upon Lynn Ball, the monitoring officer, to come in on this one because, you know, I wasn't actually going to call a vote on it because this is, to my understanding, it's something that we don't necessarily have a say in. But can I ask Lynn Ball to come in on that, please, to
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman.
clarify where we are?
Yes, the issue of scope is a matter of discretion for the chair, but however you exercise your discretion has implications for future decisions as well about how far you go with regard to scope and how far subsequent chairs will be able to go as well. So if you extend the scope of a motion to something that's outside the jurisdiction of the council and outside a sufficient degree of connectivity to the work of the council, which this motion the amendment to the motion may well be, in your view, then that will open the door to a far wider range of motions in the future about things that are national and international and not connected to the council. So you need to make a decision about how you wish to exercise that discretion, in the understanding that it will have an impact on meetings in the future and the content of motions that we accept in the future as well. So there are implications, but the discretion is yours to exercise as you see fit.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Could I ask through you to the monitoring officer? Thank you for that, Ms. Ball, but I seem to recall a few years ago a previous member of this council wished to discuss the plight of the Palestinian people. That motion, whilst being a worthy motion, was deemed to be outside our parameters by your good self as monitoring officer. What I cannot understand now, if the present incumbent of the chair of the county council rules on this matter, how can it affect future motions whilst in the past we have kept motions that have a wide remit and that we do not have direct responsibility for off the agenda of the county council? I'm slightly at a loss. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comment. Would you like to come back in on that, please, Lynn?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always been the case that the discretion sits with the chair. It's always been my advice that we should keep the remit or the scope of motions with a sufficient degree of connectivity to the council, because to do otherwise would change the nature of council meetings, in my opinion, which would mean that we would have a far broader spectrum of motions on agendas, including amendments like this one, which would result in council members discussing far broader issues outside the scope of the functions of the council. And that's been my recommendation, but it's not hard and fast legal advice, and it's up to every chair how they decide to interpret it. Past chairs have always taken the view that it should be interpreted narrowly. If a chair takes the view that it should be interpreted more generously or more widely, then that has implications for the future, because it then binds subsequent chairs. So that's the reason for the advice. And my view is that it is too broad, but that's just my opinion, and it's not a legal view. I just think that the agendas are going to be considerably longer, and meetings are going to be considerably longer if we broaden the scope too widely. But I leave it to the chair's discretion.
Can I just come in this as the chairman, please, Glenn?
Yes, well, yes, okay. Yes.
And the recommendation that I put before the council was to welcome the proposals for that parliamentary constituency of Ynys Môn as set out in the consultation document, and recommend accordingly to the county council. There's no mention of any other parliamentary places. It's just the Anglesey County Council. And that's the recommendation that we put before you, and that's the recommendation I'm asking the council to accept today.
Yes, okay.
Cadeirydd, ga ddod I mewn os gwelwch yna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, go on then, Councillor Ian Williams. Yeah.
Cynigion cychwynnol ydy'r rhain am yr ymgynghoriad, a dwi'n cymryd, efallai bod ni'n anghywir, yn bod nhw'n ymgynghori gyda ni ar hwn. Felly, gan bod nhw yn cyfathrebu efo ni, oes dim modd cymryd y gwelliant yma mwyn cael ymatab I yr ymgynghoriad sydd yn gorad san y trydydd o fis Tachwedd, ac roed yn barn fel gwleidyddion. Achos mater o wleidyddiaeth ydy hyn, a dwi'n gwybod bod y sgop falle bod o tu allan i'r gwasanaethau da ni'n redeg yn ddyddiol, dwi'n derbyn hynna. Dwi'n derbyn pwynt y swyddog monitro yn gyfan gwbl. Ond gan bod ni yn cael yn ymgynghori gyda ar nifer o bethau sydd yn genedlaethol, dwi'n gweld pam na allwn ni gynnig y gwelliant ag cymryd pleidlais arno fo. Diolch.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, hang on a second now. I'm going, Councillor Morris-Jones. Wait a second. I know Councillor Marion Jones wants to come in, and I fully take on board what you're saying there, Councillor Ian Williams. Again, I'll refer to clarification from Lynn Ball. However, you know, in relation to this, I am reluctant to set a precedent going forward for the future. Yeah, as a one-off, whether this could be treated as a one-off, that's what one thing. But if it's going to set a precedent going forward, then that's a different thing altogether. So, Lynn Ball, would you like to come back in onto where we are up to now?
Well, I think on the point you've just made, the issue has to be consistency, doesn't it, and fairness to all members when they put up a proposal, whether it's an amendment or whether it's a motion on notice, that you have to, and every other chair will have to apply the same general principles. So I don't think you can treat it as a one-off. I think it's reasonable to say if we were being consulted on the broader issue, then of course the connectivity is there. There would be no question that it would be a reasonable amendment. But because we're not actually being consulted on that, this is broader in its scope, then my view is that it is too broad and that you could create a precedent that will have fundamental impacts in the future. But if that is how members wish council meetings to be in the future, then I think that is a subject for a separate conversation perhaps we should be having.
Yes, okay. So on advice, first we'll go back. Councillor Dolan Rees, I know you've got your hand up there.
To be fair, I think Councillor Marion Jones has had his hand up for a lot longer than I have. I'll let him come in first, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, that's fine. Yes, okay.
Mae 'na dau beth dwi o'n eisiau ddeud. Un peth, na i ddod yn ôl at hynny, unwaith da ni wedi sortio allan y mater yma. Oeddwn ni'n meddwl bod y Cyngor Sir yn gallu delio efo unrhyw fater sydd yn effeithio, nid be mae'r Cyngor Sir yn neud fel y cyfryw, ond os ydy'n ffeithio y bobl neu'r ynys. Ac yn dechnegol, mae rhywbeth fel beth sydd yn digwydd i nifer o aelodau seneddol trwy Gymru yn gallu effeithio Ynys Môn. A felly, dwi'n yn gweld bod hwn yn rhy eang i'w sgôp fysa ni yn caniatáu.
Yep. All right, thank you for that. Councillor Dolan Rees.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Marion Jones's comments. The question is, would a reduction of 40 MPs from Wales to 32 have an impact on the inhabitants, the communities of Ynys Môn? And in my view, yes, it could well have, because we hear complaints about the government in Westminster is too London-centric. We hear complaints about things like the HS2 project, which isn't going to benefit anybody in Wales. If you lessen the voice of the MPs in Wales in Westminster, if you reduce the numbers, then they are going to have less influence in Westminster, which can adversely impact upon the communities of Ynys Môn. There's talk about a levelling up agenda. We need more, and we need to retain all the MPs in Wales to have a voice for the levelling up agenda across the whole of Wales, including Ynys Môn. And by diluting the numbers of MPs, you are going to dilute that voice, which directly impacts upon our island. So I think that it does come within our jurisdiction. Every case should be treated on its own merits, and I don't think we're setting a precedent by going down the road of accepting the amendment in this case. Diolch yn fawr.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Thank you for that. Yeah, 1 second, Councillor Morris-Jones. Councillor Ken Hughes has got his hand up.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Ie, diolch. Dwi'n meddwl na fi sy'n wedi siarad wan, cynghorydd Aled Morris-Jones. Ie, dwi'n anghytuno efo'r ddau siaradwr blaenorol a deud y gwir. A dwi'n cytuno efo Lynn Ball. Os yna ymgynghoriad ydy o'n gynnwch chi hawl fel unigolion i matab i hwnna. Ond dwi rwan yn meddwl dylen ni gadw at be mae'r argymelliad mae pwy'n Robert William wedi rhoi. Diolch.
Thank you for that. Councillor Morris-Jones, would you like to come back in?
Thank you. Just for clarification, when a member raises a point of order, I stand to be corrected, that point of order should be taken. Could I just have clarification of that from the monitoring officer first?
Yes, that's right. I agree with that.
Thank you. So I wasn't trying to interrupt the member. My point to you, Mr. Chairman, is that you have already allowed a debate to start on this issue respectfully. The point is that the ruling is now in your hands, whether you wish to set a case precedent. We've heard the advice of the monitoring officer. The opinion of other councillors, including my own, does not count. It is the advice of the monitoring officer that we should take due cognizance on this matter. If this issue needs to be debated, as some members believe it should go back to the Democratic Services Committee to be looked at. But respectfully, Mr. Chairman, you have allowed a debate to already begin when you should be considering your ruling on this matter based on the advice that you've heard from the monitoring officer. And so that people are aware, I do try to make a point of order because I do understand the rules of council. Diolch.
Yes, well, that's fair enough. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Morris Jones. You know, I don't need reminding of my role, but this seems to have turned into something that is very important to fellow councillors. You know, and we do have a democratic process here, so I think it's fair enough to listen to other councillors' views. So I have allowed it, and I will allow it. So, Councillor Nicola Roberts.
Yeah, just to clarify, if possible, can Lynn Ball, the monitoring officer, go over her full and frank advice again to be clear, please?
Mr. Chairman, are you happy with that?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay,
yes.
Fine, thank you. Yes, my view would be that it's the discretion of the chair, but that it does create a precedent how each chair of the council decides to interpret the width of how scope will be defined for the purposes of motions before the council. So up till now, it's been defined very tightly. So it's been about things for which the council has a direct responsibility, or where there is a sufficiently strong degree of connectivity in the opinion of the chair, and that's been the legal advice. But that is just a legal opinion. There is no hard and fast rule. It is a decision for the discretion of the chair. If that discretion is for now and in the future going to be changed, then that fundamentally will change the nature of council meetings, so that we will be debating, or you will be debating, far broader issues of not just local matters, but national and even potentially international matters, because it's not difficult to make a case for all sorts of issues having an impact on people of Ynys Môn, whether it's the number of members, elected members in the rest of Wales and the UK, or whether it's matters to do with COVID or, you know, nuclear disarmament, or all these things. They're all issues that can be seen to affect the people of Ynys Môn. So it's up to the chair to decide how it shall be interpreted, but how the chair decides impacts on future interpretations, because if it's given a broad interpretation now, it has to be given a broad interpretation in the future for the sake of consistency and fairness to all current and future members. Now, in my view, what that will do is result in council agendas that have a significant number of motions that are not directly correlated to local matters and the business of the council, and with respect the reasons for which you are elected. It will be a far broader range of topics for debate, and that means that the character of the council meetings, I think, in the future will change, and so will their duration. So that's generally my advice on the point. But as I've repeatedly said, it is up to the chair to determine what he thinks is appropriate.
Yeah, I appreciate and respect that, but the only thing I wanted to clarify more than anything, what within the proposal compared to the betterment, does that overstretch? Because all we have, basically, is we have, sorry, dwi'n mynd I newid i'r Gymraeg achos yn Saesneg I mynd yr henc ma na i afon. Ia, o fewn yr cynnig sydd o'n blaenau ni a cymharu ar gwelliant, mond rhyw un frawddeg ychwanegol ydi o. Dwi'n mynd dall bod yr sgôp yn mynd mor fawr. Fedri di esbonio hynny mi os gwelwch yn dda, achos mae'r rhagarweiniad ger yn bronni yn sôn am y 40 etholaeth a'r cynnig sy'n ei ddod â nhw I lawr. Wedyn dwi'n meddwl bod ni'n mynd off topic, achos mae'r topic reit ger yn bronni yma, yr unig beth sy'n cael ei reid ydy brawddeg ychwanegol i'r argymhelliad, sef gwelliant, os rhywbeth da ni di trafod pwera'r cadeirydd mwy na da ni wedi trafod y pwnc. Os na modd cael esboniad sut mae'r frawddeg ychwanegol yna a mynd â ni allan o sgôp mwyn bod y cadeirydd, wel, mewn lle cas ydyn ni, sori. Ella na fi sy'n symleiddio pethau braidd ormod, dwi'n mwyn gwybod, ond ia, please, fedrwch chi ymelaethu.
Yeah, what I would say is that the matter that the council's been asked to look at is narrower than the response that the council is giving. So the council is bringing in another issue, a national issue that is outside the scope of the consultation that the council has been asked to respond to. So that would be my view on the specific issue. Thank you.
Sorry, lle'n union mae o'n deud na dim ond ymatab I Ynys Môn sy'n rhaid I ni yn yr ymgynghoriad. O be wela I oedd yr ymgynghoriad yn cynnwys newid o 40 etholaeth lawr I 32 gan gynnwys newid etholaeth Ynys Môn. Wan, yn dan, da ni gyd yn falch bod Ynys Môn yn cadw I ffinia, ond yn yr un ymgynghoriad da ni'n ymateb I, da ni dal yn pryderu bod nifer yn aelodau seneddol ni yn mynd lawr. A dwi ddim yn dall sut mae hynny yn mynd yn overreaching pan mae'r pwnc berffaith o'n blaenau ni'n fyma di cael I drafod yn barod ac yr unig beth da ni'n neud ydi ychwanegu'r gwelliant. Sori, dydw I just ddim yn ei gael o'n rhaid na fi sy'n syml, dwi'n yn gwybod.
Okay.
Mr. Cadeirydd.
Thank you for that, Councillor Roberts. Hang on now. Right.
Mr. Cadeirydd,
those who haven't spoken, hang on please, Councillor Marion Jones. Those who haven't spoken, I will allow to speak. So, first of all, Councillor John Arwell Roberts, because I think we need to wind this up now, or we're going to be...
This is a point of order,
yeah,
Mr.
okay,
Chairman.
hang on a second. Hang on. Please, hang on.
Thank you,
John
Mr. Chair.
Roberts.
Chair, I see this getting out of hand now. It's quite simple what's in front of us. We should just vote on it. I do agree with Lynn Ball. I hope you don't broaden things, but it's your right to do so if you wish. But I hear all these points of order. What are the points of order? Under the Constitution, surely somebody should say under what part of the Constitution is the point of order.
Dyna be dwi'n mynd I wneud.
Diolch yn fawr, ond dwi'n newid wneud yn amlwg. Dwi'n cynnig bod ni symud ymlaen, mae hwn yn mynd yn gwleidyddol uffernol I pobl tu allan sy'n gwachod hwn. Mae'n werthus, dweud y gwir. Diolch yn fawr.
Na, dydw yn werthus, os ga I ddeud y point of order, be mae'r cyfansoddiad yn ddeud ynglyn â cynigion, mae os ga I gyfeirio at 4.1.13.3 cwmpas, mae hynny yn cyfeirio at y rhybudd o gynigion, ond mae hwn yn union yr un peth. A be mae'r geiriad yn ddeud ydy, rhaid I gynigion ymwneud â materion y mae gan y cyngor gyfrifoldeb amdanynt, neu ymwneud â materion sy'n cael effaith ar yr ardal, neu yn materion mae gan y cyngor diddordeb cyfreithlon ynddynt. Wel, os ydy 40 neu 32 aelodau I Gymru ddim yn syrthio mewn I hynny, mae fitan het.
Right, thank you for your comments there. Councillor Carwyn Jones.
Diolch, Mr. Cadeirydd. Dwi yn meddwl bod hwn yn cael effaith ar Ynys Môn, oherwydd mae'n cael effaith ar Gymru, a da ni'n gwybod bod Llywodraeth Cymru yn tynnu gwall allan yn trio delio efo Llywodraeth Geidwadol yn San Steffan. Sa ni yn torri lawr y cynrychiolau sgynnon ni o Gymru, gan I llai o bres I Gymru. Maen nhw yn trio bob math o bethau I torri ein pwera ni, I gymryd drosodd, ac I riding roughshod dros Gymru, a mae hynna'n cynnwys Ynys Môn. Felly mae hwn yn bwynt ofnadwy o bwysig I Gymru, i'r pres mae Cymru'n gael ac wedyn i'r gefnogaeth a'r pres mae Ynys Môn yn mynd i gael. Felly dwi'n meddwl bod o'n hollol berthnasol i ni ychwanegu hwn i'r mosiwn sy'n gael bron ni fel mae hi wan. Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd.
Right, thank you for that. I will allow now Councillor Brian Owen as the last speaker to come in. You've had your hand up, Councillor Owen, and you are the last person to speak on this.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. And I find this, if I was in your shoes, it's a very difficult situation. But we have a proposal from the chair of the Democratic Service, Mr Robert Llewellyn, and having listened to everyone, I must say I agree with the advice we're getting from the monitoring officer. I agree with Arwel Roberts, and if there's not been a seconder for Robert Llewellyn's proposal, I'm quite prepared to do it so we can move on. And I leave it in your hands, Mr Chairman.
Thank you for that. It's down that the leader was going to second that report. Is the leader happy to second that report?
Mr Cadeirydd, yn dilyn y drafodaeth sydd bod, dwi'n meddwl bod o'n briodol i mi, achos dydw i ddim yn mynd i fod yn medru eilio rhywbeth sydd yn mynd yn groes i ddymuniad mwyafrif o'r cynghorwyr yma heddiw.
Okay. And Councillor Brian Owen, so I'll take it that you second that report.
Yes, I do, Mr Chairman.
Right, I'll now refer, no one else now will be allowed to speak. You've all had your say, and more so. Councillor Lynn Ball. Yeah.
Thank you for the elevation, Mr Chairman. Delighted to accept it.
Welcome to the club, Lynn.
There we are.
I'll start my undertaking afterwards. Yeah, but my advice is that you need to confirm whether you accept the proposal for the betterment, for the amendment or not, first of all. And then if not, you have a proposer in Councillor Robert Llewellyn-Jones for the substantive item, and you have a seconder, I think, from Councillor Brian Owen. And that being the case, you then need to take a vote on the proposed response.
Yes, okay. So but I think it's quite important to everyone here that they've all had to say, those who wish to say. So I think we need to go to a vote on this. Yes? Are you?
Sorry, Mr Chairman, a vote on what? Because the decision on the amendment is for you and you alone. It's not a matter for the full council. Obviously, it's a matter then for the full council on the substantive item that Councillor Robert Llewellyn-Jones has proposed.
Yeah. Okay, well, in relation to that then, I'll go with the initial proposal and accept the report as proposed and seconded.
I'm done.
Yes? That's my decision.
Yes,
that's my decision.
So the amendment is rejected by you using
the
discretion of the chair, and then on that basis to put up the substantive motion from Councillor Robert Llewellyn-Jones, seconded by Councillor Brian Owen. Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Shall I read the proposal now, Mr Chairman, just for people to know what it is? To welcome the proposal for the Parliamentary Constituency of Ynys Môn as set out in the consultation document and recommend accordingly to the County Council. That's what the recommendation is.
That's what it was, and that's what it was originally. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's my decision.
Yeah, well.
Are you clear on that, Lynn? Are we?
Yes, you have a proposal, you have a seconder, and now you need to put that to the vote of all the members. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I'll put that vote. Right. Do you accept or reject that? Councillor John Griffith.
Barod i dderbyn y gwelliant, felly ar yr achos yma dwi'n atal am bleidlais.
Councillor Richard Griffiths.
Atal am bleidlais, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
Derbyn.
Councillor Trevor Lloyd Hughes.
Atal, Mr Cadeirydd.
Councillor Vaughan Hughes.
Ie, mae hynna'n anodd iawn, dwi'n anatol hefyd.
Councillor Ynys Môn Hughes.
Atal yn leidlais.
Councillor Aled Morris Jones.
Based on the advice of the monitoring officer, I accept the report. Diolch.
Councillor Carwyn Jones.
Dwi'n gwrthod hwn oherwydd dydi o ddim yn digon pell i warchod Ynys Môn ac warchod Cymru, felly dwi'n gwrthod.
Councillor Gwilym Jones.
Atal yn leidlais.
Councillor Robert Llewellyn Jones.
Accepted as the chair.
Councillor Meirion Jones.
Dwi'n gwrthod a hefyd dwi eisiau gwneud y pwynt oeddwn ni wedi roed yn llaw i fyny i siarad cyn hyn i gyd ac oeddwn ni eisiau gwneud y pwynt bod pwynt o egwyddor yn fama efo newid pethau. O'n ni wedi siarad ar y mater rei blynyddoedd yn ôl ac nes i pwyntio allan bod Albert Owen wedi codi'r mater yma efo statws Ynys Môn yn y Senedd adeg ynny ac bod y toried wedi wrthod o. Ymhoint i ydy na egwyddor ydy statws arbennig Ynys Môn fel ynys ac oedd ynysoedd eraill, ynysoedd yr Alban yn Isle of Wight wedi cael statws.
We should be taking a vote, not speeches at this point. And I would refer you to the monitoring officer. If I'm out of order, fine, but I think I'm correct on that point.
Right. Thank you for your point there, Councillor Meirion Jones. I always respect everything that you have to say, but we are now in the middle of a vote, so I'll now go on to Councillor Richard O. Jones.
Okay, dwi'n atal ym mhleidlais.
Abstaining, thank you. Councillor Richard O. Jones.
Gwrthod.
Councillor Alan Mummery.
Atal.
Councillor Brian Owen.
Derbyn.
Councillor Bob Parry. Councillor Bob Parry.
Atal.
Councillor Gary Pritchard.
Dwi'n hefyd yn atal ym mhleidlais.
Councillor Dolan Rees.
Atal.
Councillor Alan Roberts.
Gwrthod.
Councillor David Roberts.
Gwrthod.
Councillor John Arwell Roberts.
Derbyn.
Councillor Margaret Mailey Roberts.
Wedi meddwl, gwrthod mae naw, gwrthod.
Councillor Nicola Roberts.
Ymfalchio yn y ffaith bod Ynys Môn yn cael ei adael ar ben ei hun, ond teimlo rhyw fath yn union ac Cynghorydd Carwyn Jones bod y sgôp yn mynd cweit digon pell. Felly mae'n ei am bod fi'na hefyd am atal.
Councillor Peter Rogers.
Accepting.
Councillor David Rees-Thomas.
Ar ôl considro'n ofalus iawn, dwi'n hefyd yn atal ym mhleidlais.
Councillor Ieuan Williams.
Ymddeheiriadau, Mr Cadeirydd, ond dwi'n meddwl bod rhywun wedi anghofio reid i hunan o'r mute wrth wneud yr comments yna.
Say again, someone's gone off mute.
I was just saying when David Rhys-Thomas made the declaration of his vote then, I think someone was off mute when they were making comments in the back. Perhaps they'd like to check and make sure they're on mute next time.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear that, sorry. Councillor Ieuan Williams.
Gwrthod.
And Councillor Robin Williams.
Gwrthod.
Right, so Limbo, can we come back to you again now?
Yes, based on my assessment, and I'm sure that the committee officers can confirm, the motion was defeated.
The motion was defeated. Yes? Okay then. So in the interest of democracy then, I will go with that as the chair. If the motion was defeated, then that's where we are going forward. Yes, is that you? Yes.
Ynys Môn will be in a position to respond. Yes, that's right.
Yes. Okay then. So that matter is now ended. Yes? Just for clarification then, Paul?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, right, okay. So that's the last item on the agenda. And if there's no further business, I now declare the meeting over.